Today, we're going to tear down one of India's most incredible business stories, and we're going to do it like a proper case study. We're talking about how a single iconic restaurant in Bangalore managed to transform itself into a packaged food giant. And trust me, this is way more than just a nostalgia tip. It's an absolute masterclass in financial strategy and smart, gutsy moves. So, let's get into it.
First things first, let's just talk about scale. Look at this number, roughly 2,400 crore rupiah. That's the projected revenue for Orkla India for fiscal year 2025. And MTR? It's a huge part of that massive operation. So the whole point of this explainer is to figure out how on earth did they get here?
And yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? How does one local Tiffin Room, famous for its dosas and idlis, become a multi-thousand crore powerhouse? Well, the answer isn't one thing. It's a series of brilliant, and I mean brilliant, strategic and financial pivots.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down, case study style. First, we'll look at the crisis that actually forced their hand and led to a game-changing pivot. Then we'll see how they built a real playbook for scale. After that, how a huge injection of capital unlocked explosive growth. And finally, we're going to get our hands dirty and dissect their modern P&L.
All right, section 1. From restaurant to retail giant. You see, to really understand the massive company MTR is today, you have to go all the way back to the beginning, to that one restaurant, and the incredible brand it built on nothing but pure heritage and authenticity.
So picture this, 1924, Mavalli Tiffin Room, or MTR, opens its doors. For decades, it was just that, a restaurant, but it had this obsessive, relentless focus on quality and authenticity. Now, here's the crucial part. Its most valuable asset wasn't on any balance sheet. It was the deep, die-hard brand loyalty it built with every single person who ate there. That trust, that would turn out to be priceless. Okay, now for the first major turning point in our story. This is where a massive crisis created an entirely new product. Sometimes the best ideas don't come from a fancy boardroom. They come when your back is completely against the wall and you're about to lose everything.
So fast forward to the mid-1970s, during India's emergency. The government slaps these strict price controls on food. Suddenly, MTR is forced to sell an idli for 10 paise instead of their usual 25. Think about that. They were hemorrhaging money, losing up to 1 lakh of rupees on weekends alone. Their business model was completely broken. They had to shut down, and they were staring right into the abyss.
Now this slide shows the absolute genius that came out of that disaster. Instead of just giving up, the family launched instant food mixes. And in doing so, they fundamentally changed their entire business model. I mean, just look at the difference. They pivoted from a restaurant P&L, with all its high, unpredictable costs like labor and rent, to a packaged goods P&L. This new model had scalable unit economics. In simple terms, the more boxes they made, the cheaper each one got to produce. This gave them predictable margins and a path to national distribution that a single restaurant could only dream of.
So they had the product. An amazing one, born from a crisis. But, an idea is one thing. Building a national business that can last for decades, that's a whole different ballgame. This next phase was all about creating the playbook to actually scale that idea.
And as you can see from this timeline, this was absolutely not an overnight success story. After that pivot in '75, they spent the next 2 decades just methodically, patiently building the business. They expanded into high-margin products people buy all the time, like spices. They built a modern factory to professionalize everything. And by 2006, they had built a really solid 135-core business. This was all about deliberate, steady execution. But to make that jump, to go from being a successful regional player to a true national powerhouse, they hit another wall. They needed a serious injection of capital to fund that next level of growth.
And that capital arrived in 2007 through a strategic acquisition by the Norwegian company Orkla. Now, it's really important to see this not as the founders selling out, but as a strategic injection of rocket fuel. Orkla brought the financial muscle that MTR needed to just slam their foot on the accelerator.
So how did that money actually change their profit and loss statement? Well, it let them invest at a scale they just couldn't before. They poured cash into branding, into building out a national distribution network, into R&D. And all of that led directly to better efficiency, stronger margins, and ultimately much healthier profits.
And the impact? It was immediate. In 2007, the very same year as the acquisition, revenue jumped to 200 crores. I mean, that just shows you how ready the business was for that capital. It was like pouring gasoline on a perfectly built fire.
Which finally brings us to today.
So let's pop the hood and really dissect the sophisticated, multi-channel revenue engine that MTR has become.
This breakdown of their modern P&L is just so smart. Spices and masalas make up about half their revenue. Think of these as the steady workhorses, high-frequency, stable cash cows. But the future growth? That's being driven by things like breakfast mixes and ready-to-eat meals. It's a beautifully balanced portfolio. You've got stability and you've got growth, all in one. They've also adapted brilliantly to how we all shop today. I mean, look at this. Their e-commerce growth is nearly 47% year over year. That's huge. They are literally everywhere, from the corner Kirana store to quick commerce apps on your phone. They've mastered both the huge volume of traditional retail and the insane speed of online sales. And the recent financials, well, they tell the whole story. You've got steady revenue growth for sure, but more importantly, you have improving profitability. Their profit after tax is growing at around 13% year over year. That is the sign of a healthy, mature, and believe it or not, still growing business. So, if we boil this entire case study down, what are the key takeaways? What's the playbook? Well, it's a 5-step process. 1, they turned their brand heritage into real financial value. 2, they were smart about expanding into categories that boosted their margins. 3, they absolutely mastered distribution. 4, they used capital not just to survive, but to truly scale. And 5, they built a diverse portfolio to make the business tough and resilient. And really, this quote just nails it. The MTR story isn't just a feel-good story about a beloved brand. It is a textbook, MBA-level example of making smart, P&L-focused decisions step after step to turn authenticity into a multi-thousand crore enterprise. And that just leaves us with one final thought to chew on. MTR took the heritage of a local Tiffin Room and turned it into a packaged goods empire. So it kind of makes you wonder, right? What untapped heritage, what trusted local brand in your world is just one single strategic pivot away from becoming the next big thing?